What if a single seed, just one, could either make you the wealthiest man alive or burn you to ash? This is not a fairy tale about happy endings. This is an ancient Chinese legend passed down for thousands of years, a story so powerful, so deeply rooted in truth, that generations of grandmothers whispered it to their grandchildren by candlelight, warning them about the most dangerous poison known to mankind. Not arsenic, not venom, greed. Sit down. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine a world where a magical bird grants you access to an island overflowing with mountains of gold and rivers of silver, and all you have to do is know when to stop. Could you stop? Most people say yes. Most people are lying. This is the story of two brothers who were given the same opportunity and made very, very different choices. One walked away with a fortune. The other walked away with nothing because he ______. There is an old saying that goes, "A household with two masters is a household at war." Deep in the heart of ancient China, nestled between rolling fields of golden millet and winding rivers that shimmered like liquid jade, there lived two brothers beneath the same roof. They had grown up side by side, shared the same childhood laughter, the same bowls of rice, the same dusty roads under their bare feet. But somewhere along the way, as it so often happens, a woman's whispered words had carved a canyon between them. The elder brother, broad-shouldered and proud, had taken a wife whose tongue was sharper than any blade ever forged. She was cunning, calculating, and deeply envious of anything she did not possess. Whatever she murmured into her husband's ear at night, he accepted as gospel truth by morning. Under her quiet but relentless influence, the elder brother had slowly, almost imperceptibly, begun to pull away from his younger sibling. The younger brother, lean and bright-eyed, had no such companion to poison his thoughts. He was the kind of man who woke before the sun, whose hands were always calloused from honest labor, and whose heart remained, despite every hardship, surprisingly open and warm. They were blood. They were brothers. And yet, by the time summer arrived and painted the countryside in shades of deep emerald and blazing amber, they felt like strangers. Summer breathed its hot, heavy breath across the land, and with it came the planting season, the most critical time of year for any farming family. The towering millet needed to be sown before the rains came, or the entire harvest would be lost. The younger brother had fallen on difficult times that year. His storage bins were hollow and empty, the echoes inside them more nourishing than the grain that was no longer there. With no seed to plant and no money to buy more, he swallowed his pride, a bitter thing to swallow, and walked to his elder brother's door. "Brother," he said, bowing his head slightly, "I find myself without seed this season. If you could spare some grain on loan, I would return it twice over after the harvest." The elder brother glanced sideways, which meant he was thinking of his wife. He nodded and called out to her to bring grain for his brother. She smiled, that particular smile that never quite reached her eyes, and disappeared into the back room. What happened next, the younger brother could not have possibly imagined. She selected a generous portion of the finest millet seeds, poured them into their largest clay pot, filled it with water, and set it over the fire. She cooked those seeds until they were soft, swollen, and completely, irreversibly dead. No cooked seed could ever sprout. No cooked seed could ever grow. She had just handed her husband's brother an entire season of nothing. She packed the ruined seeds into a cloth sack, tied it neatly, and presented it with a gracious smile. "There you are. Plenty to sow your entire field." The younger brother thanked her sincerely, unaware of the invisible knife she had just slipped between his ribs. He carried the sack home, prepared his field with the devotion of a man who truly believed in his labor, and sowed every last seed into the dark, waiting earth. Days passed, then weeks. Nothing grew. Row after row after row, silence. The earth remained stubbornly, cruelly barren, except for one single spot at the far corner of the field. One seed, perhaps lodged against the edge of the pot, perhaps touched by some unseen grace, had escaped the cooking. And from that one survivor, one impossibly lucky seed, a single green sprout pushed its way up through the soil like a fist raised in defiance. The younger brother could have wept. He could have raged. He could have stormed back to his brother's house demanding answers. Instead, he did what his nature had always compelled him to do. He got to work. Every single morning, before the birds had finished their first chorus, he was kneeling beside that sprout with a bowl of fresh water. He loosened the soil around it with a carved wooden tool, pulling away every competing weed with careful fingers. He studied the direction of the wind and built a small windbreak from bundled reeds. When insects came, he drove them away. When the sun beat down too harshly, he fashioned a tiny shade from palm leaves. He treated that single sprout as though it were a child, his only child. And the sprout responded. It grew, not slowly, not modestly, but with a kind of explosive, almost supernatural vitality. Within days, it had surpassed every millet stalk the younger brother had ever seen. Within weeks, it had grown as tall and thick as a young tree, its stalk wider than a man's wrist, its roots driving deep into the earth as though anchoring itself to the very core of the world. And then came the ear. It emerged from the crown of the plant like a king ascending a throne, massive, magnificent, swaying gently in the breeze like a great canopy. When fully grown, that single ear of millet stretched wide enough to cast shade over half an acre of ground. Villagers came from 3 towns away just to stand beneath it and stare upward in silent amazement. Nothing like it had ever been seen. When autumn painted the hills in copper and crimson and the air turned crisp with the scent of coming winter, the younger brother knew the time had come. He sharpened his axe, whispered a quiet word of gratitude, and swung. The enormous ear fell to the earth with a sound like distant thunder. And then, before he could even straighten his back, the sky above him darkened. Understood. It came from the east, where the sky meets the sea, and it blocked out the sun as it descended. A rock. In Chinese legend, the rock, called Peng, is no ordinary bird. It is a creature of cosmic scale, ancient beyond memory, whose wingspan can blot out the heavens and whose wing beats create storms. To see one is a miracle. To be spoken to by one is something that happens perhaps once in 10,000 years. The great bird dove, with the precision of a hunter, snatched the enormous ear of millet in its beak as effortlessly as a sparrow takes a crumb, and launched itself back into the sky with one powerful sweep of its wings. The younger brother stood frozen for one astonished moment. Then he ran. He ran across the stubble of his field, through the edge of the village, along the winding dirt path that led eastward, past the last house and the last fence and the last familiar face. He ran until the path became sand, and the sand became rock, and the rock ended abruptly at the edge of an enormous, roaring sea. The rock was perched on a boulder above him, watching him with one enormous amber eye the size of a cartwheel. And then, impossibly, magnificently, it spoke. "You should not seek to harm me," the rock said, its voice like wine through a mountain pass. "What is this one ear worth to you? Beyond this sea lies the Isle of gold and silver. I shall carry you there. You may take whatever your hands can carry, and you shall return a wealthy man." The younger brother looked at the ocean. He looked at the bird. He looked at his calloused hands and his worn clothing, and thought of his empty grain bins and his bare walls and the winter that was coming. "I accept," he said. Close your eyes, the rock instructed. He climbed onto the bird's back, pressed himself low against the warm feathers, and shut his eyes. What followed was unlike anything he had ever experienced. A rushing, howling wall of wind, the sensation of impossible speed, the distant roar of the ocean far below, and then, gradually, a deep and humming silence. The rock landed gently on solid ground. "Open them," it said. The younger brother opened his eyes. And he forgot, for several breathless seconds, how to breathe. In every direction, as far as his eyes could reach, the island glittered and blazed. Mounds of yellow and white objects covered the ground like dunes in a desert, except these dunes were made of gold and silver. Nuggets the size of fists lay scattered casually along the shoreline. Coins and ingots spilled from crevices in the rocks. The entire island caught the light and threw it back in blinding, cascading brilliance. He had never seen gold before. Not real gold, not in this quantity. He had not even known his whole life that such abundance was possible in the world. He walked forward slowly, almost reverently, and bent down. He picked up a handful of pieces, not the largest, not the most spectacular, just a modest, comfortable handful, and tucked them carefully into the folds of his clothing. He straightened up and looked around once more, drinking in the impossible sight, letting it settle into his memory like ink into paper. "Have you enough?" the rock asked from behind him. The younger brother considered the question seriously, honestly, the way a man who has known real hunger considers the question of enough. "Yes," he said, "I have enough." The rock regarded him for a long, quiet moment. "That is well," it said at last, and something in its ancient voice sounded almost like approval. "Moderation is the shield that protects a man from harm." They flew back across the roaring sea, and when the younger brother opened his eyes again, he was standing on the familiar rocky shore of home. He was careful and patient, two qualities that had always defined him. He did not arrive back in the village waving gold and announcing his fortune. He moved quietly, thoughtfully. He converted a few pieces at a time, purchased a modest but fertile parcel of land in the next valley, then another, then a small house, then livestock. Within a handful of years, the younger brother had built himself a life of genuine, solid, unshakable comfort. Not extravagant, not ostentatious, but secure and warm and entirely his own. Word traveled, as word always does. It reached his elder brother's ears on a crisp autumn evening, carried by the same winds that had once blown millet seeds across his field. Understood. The elder brother's face darkened the moment he heard. "Where did he steal that money?" he demanded when he finally confronted his younger sibling, his voice sharp with suspicion and badly concealed envy. The younger brother, whose nature had not been corroded by bitterness, told him everything. The cooked seeds, the single sprout, the miraculous growth. The rock, the island blazing with gold and silver. The modest handful he had taken. The words of the great bird about moderation. He told it all, openly and honestly, withholding nothing. That night, the elder brother paced the floor of his home while his wife sat watching him with sharp, calculating eyes. "It is simple," she said when he had finished his pacing. "We do exactly what he did. I will cook the grain again, but this time I will leave one seed uncooked deliberately. You plant it. The rock comes. You ride to the island." She leaned forward. "But unlike your foolish little brother, you take everything you can carry." The elder brother stopped pacing and smiled. It was not a kind smile. Understood. The plan was executed precisely. The grain was cooked, one seed was spared, and the elder brother sowed it with impatient, ambitious hands. He was not the type to kneel in the dirt and whisper encouragement to a plant, but the sprout grew anyway, perhaps sustained by the same mysterious force that had driven its predecessor, perhaps simply by the stubbornness of life itself. It grew tall. It grew magnificent. It bore one enormous ear. When the harvest came, the rock descended from the eastern sky exactly as before, seized the ear in its massive beak, and took to the air. The elder brother was already running. He reached the sea's edge, breathless and sweating, just as the rock landed on the boulder. It spoke the same words, made the same offer. The elder brother accepted without hesitation, climbed onto the great bird's back, squeezed his eyes shut, and felt the world dissolve into rushing wind and roaring water. When he opened his eyes on the Isle of Gold and Silver, his breath left him in one long, shuddering gasp. It was even more extraordinary than he had imagined. His brother had described it accurately, but no description could prepare a man for the reality of it. Gold everywhere, silver everywhere, heaped, piled, scattered, overflowing. More wealth than this entire province had seen in a century. More wealth than 100 generations of his family could spend. He did not bend down carefully and select a modest handful. He dropped to his knees and began stuffing his clothing with as much as it could hold. Understood. That is enough, the rock said. You are overtaxing yourself. Just a little longer, the elder brother replied, his fingers working feverishly. Be patient. I am almost done. But he was not almost done. His pockets bulged. His sleeves were heavy. He tied knots in the ends of his outer robe to create a makeshift sack and filled that too. His face was flushed, his breathing labored, but his eyes were still hungry, still roaming the dunes of treasure, calculating, planning, reaching. We must leave now, the rock said, and this time there was an urgency in its ancient voice that had not been there before. The sun is almost here. You do not understand what the sun means on this island. It does not warm. It consumes. One more moment. The elder brother snapped, annoyed at the interruption. I did not come all this way to leave empty-handed like my idiot brother. The rock spread its wings. I am telling you for the last time. We must go now. 5 more minutes, the elder brother said, and turned his back on the bird. The sky to the east began to lighten, not with the gentle pink of an ordinary dawn, but with a deep, fierce, pulsing crimson, as though the horizon itself had caught fire. The light was unlike any sunrise the elder brother had ever seen. It vibrated. It hummed. It pushed against his skin like heat from an open furnace, even from miles away. The rock gave one last cry, launched itself from the boulder, dove toward the sea, spread both enormous wings wide across the surface of the water, and beat downward, driving itself beneath the waves to escape what was coming. The elder brother finally looked up. The sun crested the horizon like a burning wheel rolling across the sky, and the light that poured from it was not golden and gentle. It was white and absolute and merciless. It hit him like a wall. He had one moment, just one, to understand what his brother's modest handful had truly meant, what the rock's words about moderation had truly meant, what the whole journey, the whole miracle, the whole extraordinary gift had truly been trying to teach him. Then the light took him. And the Isle of Gold and Silver was silent again, as it had always been, as it would always be, patient and blazing and utterly indifferent to the desires of men. The younger brother lived a long, quiet, contented life. He never returned to the island. He never needed to. What he had taken, that modest, carefully chosen handful, had been more than enough to build a good life, raise healthy children, and leave something meaningful behind. He grew old in his comfortable house, surrounded by the land he had earned and the family he had nurtured, and sometimes on autumn evenings he would sit on his doorstep and watch the eastern sky, where the sea met the horizon in a shimmer of gold and silver light. And he would remember a great bird's words, spoken on a rock at the edge of the world. Moderation is the shield that protects a man from harm. He never forgot them. He never needed to be told twice. Some lessons arrive as gifts. Some arrive as warnings. The wisest people accept both with equal gratitude. This tale originates from ancient Chinese folklore, where the great bird is known as the Peng, a creature of cosmic magnitude whose wings touch the clouds and whose wisdom outlasts empires. The treasures of the island are described in the original as yellow and white objects, because the humble younger brother, who had never seen gold or silver in his life, did not yet have words for what he was looking at. That detail alone tells you everything about who he was. Some people see gold and think, how much can I take? Others see gold and think, how much do I need? Only one of those questions leads you safely home.